Hi, Pilou. How are you doing?
I'm great.
I'm absolutely hooked on this show. Absolute definition of binge worthy. But from your perspective, what was the allure for this? Because it's quite a world away, I guess, from the likes of Game of Thrones, this sort of intimate family drama. But there's such an intensity to it. When you picked up the script, what jumped out to you?
I think one of the reasons why I love the script is because I could feel how personal it is, how personal a story it is for Casper Monk, who's the director, and Lone Hørslev, who's the writer, and they are a couple. And it's sadly enough the world we live in now. Substances like alcohol or drugs or we go we, the I want to lose weight drug. There's so many things that you can take that will end addiction. For me personally, I'm in my mid 40s, so of course I've had friends who died of using drugs. We all have one, or two, or three, or four, depending on which environment you grew up in, and so do I. So it's also an homage to them. It's a character based on my two best friends. Yeah, it's a merch. I always take inspiration, especially when there's something like this, because this is so different. You're right. This is so different from Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is a stylistic work. Game of Thrones is visually extremely beautiful, and it's so well written. And this is much more like a guy you can meet in a pub. This is you and me. You know what I mean? And that's also the way I wanted to act it. I wanted to act him as human, as physically possible. The reason why you feel it's intense is because why do people take drugs? This is my little personal opinion on drugs. You take drugs because you either want to get away from something or you want to hide from something. That's practically the same. So for me, I base this character is that he has some kind of a ADHD, and he's been self-medicating. He loves to do his work. He loves to be a teacher. He's just not a very good person at being mess. And I think that's what a lot of people can relate to. That you love your craft, you love your job, you're just bad at being you. I think that's his vulnerability and the reason why he needs to hide and the reason why he needs to take some getaways and to get them is through drugs.
You've covered a lot of the relevant points I was even going to ask about because he is such a complex character. And I think what's amazing about the performance as well is, time and time again, he's making the wrong decisions. Time and time again, he's pushing the people close to him away from him. Yet you're still rooting for him because I think he is very relatable. And you do see, deep down, his heart is in the right place, but he is just struggling, to keep up with everyday life and,
Yeah,
you
he's
know,
not a
his
he's not
responsibilities.
he's not good at being a human being, and it's just so sad. And for me, I love doing characters like this. I kind of miss doing characters like this. I used to do a lot of these roles at the beginning of my career, and then for 10 years I drifted off, and I was so intoxicated, and I love the Hollywood world, and I love the money, and I'm not criticizing it because I will still do it in the future. I have a house because of that. I have a safety net for my family and me because of the films I've done the past 10 years. But at the end of the day, my career is not this movie. My career is a span of 50, 60, 40 years of work. It will be. And this, for me, was probably one of the most personal characters I've ever done. As I told you, he was a massive inspiration for some people very near me. This role is one of the reasons why you want to do acting. You want to have a great script. You want to be able to improvise. Why is he so identifying? Why do I recognize him? And why is he like he is? It's because of his flaws. We're so used to non-complex characters at the moment because if it's too complicated, we can't take it in. Either you're good or you're bad. But that's also the media world. I'm not saying your media, but I'm saying in general, the media and the political arena, either you're for or against, either you're with or without, either you're blue or you're red. And the thing is, the world is not like that. The world is not black and white. The world is so much more gray. And this guy, he's gray. He keeps living in these gray areas. For me, it was so important that when he was freaking out, it was because he wanted to be an artist, but he was never made to be an artist because he doesn't have the fucking balls to be an artist. Trust me, I've tried being one for 18 years with an 18 years career, it's hard. It's hard. It's hard doing an interview like this now, because it's difficult. I have to say something that is personal and meaningful. You have to look interested and be like, oh, I got some good shit now. It is difficult, but we do the best we can. We can. Yeah.
And obviously, one of the crucial relationships is between Mads and Ava. And I've got siblings. That there it can be that closeness. Yet they're the person that can hurt you the most easily. So there's both the strength and a vulnerability in having those relationships. So how did you work with Ivan in particular on the knottiness and the messiness of this sort of sibling relationship?
First of all, I have two older brothers that are 10 and 8 years older than me. And that's probably the gap between me and Eden. Eden is so quirky. She's so fun. She's done so much work. She's an incredible actress. I think she's done some of her. I think this is one of her best works ever, to be honest. And she's still developing. She's still putting tools in the tool bag and getting better day by day. I asked her the first day, what do you family call you? And she said, oh, I've always been called Pusli. And I'm like, and I've always been called Troll, which means a troll. And then we said, okay, let's do the only really personal thing. Then I call you Pusling and you call me Troll. And she's like, oh, I love it. We invested a lot of ourselves into the characters. That sounds like an idiotic example after saying, and then we invested a lot of ourselves in the characters because, but you know what I mean? You can't do roles like that if you haven't had it close to you. It's simply not possible, especially for me and Mass. You can't. I've seen so many of my friends also, yeah, close relatives who have fallen into the dark pit of being an addict while we were shooting, and everything was so intense and so dark and so bleak and so without hope. Those few scenes where we were sitting and laughing, they were like a breath of fresh air. They were so incredible, but it was also difficult. Eve and I, we weren't great together, and we were great colleagues, but we were also pushing each other. We didn't agree on everything all the time. I wouldn't say it was complicated because it didn't feel like it, because it was creatively extremely blossoming. But doing because math, but I lived for 4 months while shooting this show like him. I went back to how I shot my films, my Danish films, and the way I worked with Borg, and I did much more going into a dark place than I've done the past 8 years with characters. And maybe that's what you feel. Maybe that's what actors have to invest sometimes to make it real. I kind of missed it. I thought I could get away with it, with not doing it, but you just can't. You have to invest yourself 100,000% every time. And it's tough. It's tough. And you know what's frustrating? It's frustrating this series gets to travel the whole world, but it's not being released in Denmark. That's frustrating.
And, in terms of the shoot itself, I mean, I don't know if it felt as intense to make it as it does feel to watch it. And maybe it's because of these sort of, quite short episodes in a way. They kind of drop, and you're hooked in, and then it's ended, and then you're into the next one. So there's a certain pace to it. Was it like on the shoot?
Yeah, oh fuck yeah, man! It was super intense. I was devastated, and I was so broken down because I had just done an AMC show prior this one that got canceled on, I think it was on more or less got canceled on Christmas Eve, and it was a male lead in a massive AMC show called Invitation to a Bonfire. You want to hear something funny? Before we started shooting that AMC show, this is the essence of Hollywood sometimes. Before we started shooting that show, we had 2 times 3 hours harassment course. How to behave, how to be nice, how to be talkative, how to be communicating, how to have a very safe work environment. I loved it. And it was some girl from Disney who did 2 times 3 hours. How to behave, how to be a good colleague. Great. When we got an email on Christmas Eve from AMC, no one had signed it. It just said, we're canceling your show while we were shooting it. I love the fact that they force us, the cast and the crew, to have these sessions of how to behave when when one of the biggest studios is misbehaving so badly. It's unbelievable. But yeah, that's a different story.
In terms of the impact of a show like this, I mean, of course, you know, there is something on the entertainment value about just being sucked in to the lives of these characters. And I think, as we were saying earlier, I think people really can see themselves reflected in them. And there is this veneer of respectability to a lot of people's lives. And then underneath, there's often a lot of darkness and dysfunction, maybe not to the degree as we see in the show, but you know, that is the case for a lot of people. So do you think there's a lot for people to take away in terms of seeing themselves represented on screen? And whether they do have someone in their lives suffering from addiction, to reach out to them and want to sort of see them go on a better path?
Yeah, I think there is. I think this is one of the few shows where you can actually take something away from it, because this whole show is about, if you cannot love yourself, I cannot love you. Honestly, it's about self-respect. She needs to accept her journey, her faith, her decisions, and she needs to let him go. The thing is with addiction is, if you were the drug addict, let's say we were in a relationship and you kept saying, I'll be better, but you never changed, I would have to make my decision about how I want to live the world and not how I can live my world through your world. And that's called self-respect. And you know what Sting said? It's so banal, it's such a cliche, but there's a reason why a cliche is a cliche, because there's some truth to it. If you love someone, set them free. And I think for Eden's character, Eva, what she needs to learn is that she's good enough. She can't save him because he doesn't want to be saved. And I think a lot of people can relate to that when talking about drug addictions, that you have to set your foot down. You have to close the door. I cannot, if I give you any money, if I really give you any money and you say you're going to buy food, we know you're lying because you're a drug addict and you're going to go down and you're going to buy drugs. And I'm going to be the one giving you money so you can keep living this life. And let's take away, let's say it's not drugs. Let's say it's alcohol. You come from a country with a massive amount of alcoholism. There's so much alcohol. Like every day you have to go to the pub. I've never been to a country where I was so forced to drink. And if I didn't, people would look ill to me. That's an addiction. That's not a healthy society. That's a coping mechanism. I'm trying to get by. Sorry, I'm not criticizing England, but we have the same problem in Denmark. And yeah, I think you can take something away from it.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And just very quickly, I know you've also been working on Salem's Lot. Maybe you can say a few words about that and what you might have coming up next.
Okay, so I did Salem's Lot, but we did it so many years ago, and I got it. I did Salem's Lot because Peter Safran and James Wan were shooting Aquaman 2, and I was a villain in that one as well. And they thought it would be so much fun to do Salem's Lot with me as well. And then I got to work with Gary and the whole cast and crew. It was so much fun. I'm a massive Stephen King fan. I haven't seen the film yet because I just wrapped 2 films in the Faroe Islands and on Iceland, so I haven't been able to see it. But I really want to see it the moment I get some free hand. But it's also like sitting down and watching yourself in a few scenes on TV is also a little bit like, it's different going to an opening night at the theater to sit in your own private living room watching yourself. It feels weird. Yeah, so I got my Danish film called No Rest for the Wicked, which is going to be amazing. That's going to be amazing. That's going to be amazing next year. That one. That's the shot in the Faroe Islands. I've never done anything like that before. And then I got Foundation, the Apple Show Foundation. So yeah, I like working.
Well, thank you so much again. Really great to chat to you. Best of luck with your next projects too.
Thank you. Wonderful.